The glow that made him unstoppable also carried a cost that almost no one saw. Will Smith didn't simply walk into rooms. He orchestrated them. He adjusted the temperature, set the mood, and controlled the energy, as though survival depended on it. To the outside world, that grin looked like charisma. To him, it was a weapon. The smile was armor, and the quick jokes were shields. Long before Hollywood, long before box office crowns, he had learned one brutal truth. If you can keep the room laughing, maybe the storm won't break. West Philadelphia built that truth into him. The Winfield neighborhood where he grew up wasn't the roughest corner of the city, but danger has many disguises. His father, Willard Sr., was a refrigeration engineer. Proud of his discipline, sometimes proud of his temper. His mother, Caroline Bright, was a school administrator, with chalk on her fingertips and an iron sense of duty. Together, they looked like stability. Inside, they were fault lines waiting to rupture. At just 9 years old, Will watched the moment that split his innocence. His father hit his mother. She collapsed. He froze. He didn't step forward, didn't scream, didn't defend. Decades later, in his memoir, Will, he admitted that night branded him with shame. "I always thought of myself as a coward," he wrote. That single moment wired his instincts permanently. Manage the room, protect the people you love, and never let the storm arrive again. Humor wasn't entertainment. Humor was a survival strategy. The boy who made everyone laugh was actually the boy trying to keep the walls from caving in. That's why the Fresh Prince smile wasn't born on a set. It was born in a living room filled with silence after violence. It's why even when he was broke, his grin felt unbreakable. Because for him, laughter was a weapon sharper than fear. But growing up, Will wasn't poor. The family was solidly middle class. They lived in a safe neighborhood, surrounded by people who believed their kids had a shot. Yet safety on paper is not safety in practice. A house can be steady outside and fractured inside. Will understood that better than most. He found release in rhythm. Hip-hop was spreading like wildfire in Philadelphia, and with his childhood friend Jeffrey Towns, DJ Jazzy Jeff, he found an escape hatch. Together, they formed DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. Unlike the gritty rhymes of their peers, their music was playful, radio-friendly, and family-approved. Hits like Parents Just Don't Understand turned them into stars. In 1989, they won the very first Grammy Award for rap. History should have smiled on them, but the Recording Academy didn't televise the category. Many rap giants boycotted. Will stood with a statue in his hands, smiling for cameras, but inside he felt invisible. Critics labeled him soft. Hardcore rappers dismissed him. Triumph and rejection arrived in the same package. And money, which flowed in fast, flowed out faster. At 20, he had cars in the driveway, jewelry flashing on his wrists, and parties that didn't stop. What he didn't have was financial discipline. The IRS came calling. He owed millions in back taxes, practically overnight. The young Grammy winner was broke. "I had a hit record. I had a Grammy. And then I was broke," he later confessed. He learned the first brutal rule of success. Fortune without control becomes humiliation. At that lowest moment, fate opened a door he never could have predicted. Quincy Jones invited him to a party. Will thought he was going to network. Instead, Quincy set up a challenge. "Audition right now," he demanded. Will resisted. No script. No preparation. No way. Quincy wouldn't budge. "This is how the industry works. You do it now, or you don't do it at all." Will panicked. Then he made a choice. Step forward or disappear. He auditioned right there in Quincy's living room. Minutes later, he had a role. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air premiered in 1990. Suddenly, the broke rapper was America's new sitcom star. The show wasn't just comedy. It was therapy in disguise. Week after week, he used humor to mask pain, just as he had at home. But this time, millions laughed with him. He was learning a skill that no paycheck could buy. How to turn wounds into stories, shame into rhythm, survival into art, and Hollywood noticed. By the mid-1990s, Will Smith became more than a star. He became a season. Studios called it Big Willie Weekend. Bad Boys in 1995 proved he could hold the screen. Independence Day, in 1996, made him the world's savior. Men in Black in 1997 cemented him as a cultural icon. Year after year, his films opened at #1. He was charming, fearless, and unstoppable. By the end of the decade, he wasn't just starring in movies, he was defining the very shape of summer. But every crown has an edge. Critics called him too polished, too safe. He smiled too much, they said. He didn't go deep enough. Will heard them, and he wanted to prove them wrong. Ali in 2001 nearly broke him. To embody Muhammad Ali meant transforming his body, his voice, his very rhythm. He trained endlessly, 6 hours a day in the gym, boxing until his ribs screamed, running until his legs burned. He studied Ali's cadence until his throat cracked. He gained weight, muscle, and discipline he didn't know he had. The performance earned him an Oscar nomination. The applause was thunderous, but inside he was hollowed out, questioning whether he'd given too much of himself. Then came The Pursuit of Happiness in 2006. This was different. Playing Chris Gardner wasn't about mimicking a legend. It was about channeling his own scars. The role of a father desperate to protect his son tore open the wound left when Will was 9. Every tear on screen was real. Every look at his on-screen son, Jaden, was a vow to never repeat the cycle. The film earned him another Oscar nomination, and something greater: release. The pain finally had a purpose, but not every choice was right. He turned down The Matrix. He passed on Django Unchained. These decisions haunted him. They weren't just missed roles. They were reminders of how fragile legacy is. One no could rewrite history. And then came the night that reshaped his story forever. March 27, 2022. The Dolby Theater glittered. Will Smith, after decades of work, finally stood as Best Actor for King Richard. 30 years of blood, sweat, and perseverance had led here. He held the Oscar. He cried. The applause thundered. But minutes earlier, history had cracked. A joke about Jada, Will rising from his seat, a walk to the stage, a slap that echoed across the world. Gasps. Silent. What should have been the pinnacle of his career became its darkest chapter. He resigned from the Academy. He was banned from attending Oscars events for a decade. Studios paused. Projects collapsed. The crown he had fought for became the sharpest chain he'd ever carried. And the wound wasn't just public. It was private. Will admitted later. It was a scar for life. At night, the sound replayed in his head, over and over. He apologized. He explained. He confessed. But no speech could erase the memory. Still, he refused to disappear. He began the slow process of redemption, not with words but with work. In 2024, Bad Boys Ride or Die hit theaters. Critics were cautious. Audiences weren't. The movie debuted with over $100 million worldwide and eventually crossed $400 million. Will Smith was back. The box office spoke louder than the headlines. He could still deliver. Redemption doesn't happen in speeches. It happens in consistency. Meanwhile, his personal life remained complicated. In 2023, Jada Pinkett Smith revealed they had been living separate lives since 2016. Not divorced, but not together in the traditional sense. To outsiders, it was shocking. To them, it was survival. They remained bonded. Co-parents, partners, companions in a fractured journey. It wasn't the Hollywood fairy tale. It was real life, messy, raw, and human. Family had always been Will's deepest wound. His first marriage to Cherie Zampino ended in 1995. He called it the ultimate failure. Their son Trey grew distant. For years the bond broke. Will said the silence between them haunted him more than any critic's review. But slowly they reconciled. Today, Trey is not just a presence but a source of peace. With Jada, the storms were louder. The rumors of open marriage, the entanglement revelation. Living separately while still tied together, their children, Jaden and Willow, carried the burden of public scrutiny. Willow admitted she crumbled under pressure. Jaden sought distance to find his own identity. Yet the family, scarred as it was, endured. Will often calls Jada his life partner, a phrase that bends tradition but reflects resilience. Their bond is less a fairy tale and more a battlefield they chose not to abandon. As the headlines raged, his body whispered a different warning. In 2019, during a routine colonoscopy, doctors found a precancerous polyp. They removed it. He shared the footage online. It was awkward, unglamorous, and life-saving. The message was clear. Even legends are fragile. Strength isn't appearance. It's vigilance. In 2021, he launched Best Shape of My Life on YouTube, planning to document a fitness journey. Instead, it turned into something deeper. Cameras captured him struggling, doubting, admitting his mental health battles. At one point, he confessed to dark thoughts. For fans, it was shocking. For him, it was necessary honesty. The Fresh Prince mask was gone. What remained was a man, raw and human. That same year, he released his memoir, Will. It peeled away every layer: childhood trauma, marital fractures, regrets, triumphs. Each chapter was confession and cure. For readers, it was a revelation. For him, it was therapy. And in 2025, he returned to music. After 20 years, Will Smith released Based on a True Story. The standout track, Beautiful Scars. It was more than a song, it was a thesis. Stop hiding damage. Embrace it. Scars are proof you survived. The video, with nods to The Matrix, winked at roads not taken. But the message was present, powerful, undeniable. Scars can be beautiful. At 56, Will Smith's empire is vast. Films, music, real estate, production companies. But numbers don't define him anymore. Scars do. The scar of childhood guilt, the scar of IRS collapse, the scar of missed roles, the scar of Oscar night, the scar of marriage struggles, the scar of health scares. Together they form a map. The crown is still there. It just sits differently now. It's not a shiny toy, it's a tool. In his 20s, he wanted to dazzle. In his 40s, he wanted depth. In his 50s, he wants endurance. He isn't chasing perfection anymore. He's chasing meaning. Because greatness isn't about spotless legends. Greatness is about carrying scars with grace and teaching others how to heal. When you see Will Smith today, don't just see the Fresh Prince or the box office king. See the man who lived through humiliation, confessed his failures, rebuilt piece by piece, and now sings not of triumph, but of scars. The boy who froze at 9 is now a man who stands, scarred but unbroken. And if his journey says anything, it's this. Applause fades, crowns slip, images crack, but scars remain. And sometimes they are the most beautiful proof of all.